Hello. Today we're going to be looking for Roman remains in Lincoln. Lincoln is very well known as a medieval city, but as we go round we'll see that there's plenty of evidence of the Roman city if you look hard enough. I'm standing here in the grounds of Lincoln Castle. Of course, as you can see, the castle is medieval and not Roman, but this is where it all began, the place where the Romans built their first fortress. There may be nothing to see of the fortress itself, but we'll encounter the Romans very soon. We're going to be exploring the Roman town of Lincoln, or more accurately, the two Roman towns of Lincoln. We'll start with Lindum, the town that grew up around the fortress. Then we walk down the hill and look at the old Roman road. Then we'll see where the Romans built a new town, Lindum Colonia, at the bottom of the hill, and have a quick look in the museum. And finally, don't leave before the end, because we're going to see a feat of Roman engineering, an artificial waterway. Leaving the castle, we're walking along Bale Gate. This follows the route of the Roman Ermine Street as it passed through Lincoln. On the floor you can see markers showing the entrance to the Forum. And then we come to the site of the Forum itself. Over here the lines in the floor show where the Basilica or Town Hall once stood. We know there's been lots of other buildings here, including shops, offices and the temple. Over here is a Roman well, although unfortunately you can't see too much if you try to peer down into it. Just around the corner from the Forum is a piece of Roman wall called the Mince Wall. This is part of the outer wall of the Basilica, and it's unusual in Britain for being a substantial Roman wall, not built for defensive purposes. Now we've come to the end of Bale Gate and arrived at the Newport Arch, which was once one of 4 gateways through the city walls. It's now the only Roman city gate in Britain that's still open to traffic. In fact, you can see that there are 2 arches, one for traffic and one for pedestrians. We're now walking through the pedestrian arch. And around the other side you can see a bit of the city wall in a garden. Coming back inside the Newport Arch, we're walking along a quiet road called West Bight, which follows the line of the city walls. Here we have a small remnant of the wall, but particularly interesting is this line in the ground, which marks the location of one of the reservoirs that stored water for the city. We know that water was brought here via a now lost aqueduct, but we don't really know the source of the water. We're following the road round, still along the route of the walls. And now we come to the remains of the East Gate in the grounds of the Lincoln Hotel. Here you can see the foundations of quite a substantial tower. Walking past the cathedral, we come to the top of Steep Hill. This too was part of Ermine Street and linked the town at the top of the hill with the settlement at the bottom. We'll be walking down Steep Hill. If you're familiar with Lincoln, you'll know that it's aptly named. If not, remember that if you walk down, you have to walk back up again. A little way down Steep Hill, you come to a shop at number 44. This was the location of the original South Gate, and a few fragments of the gate can be seen inside the shop. Then, as now, Steep Hill was difficult for wheeled traffic to travel up or down, so the Danes Gate Road here provided a slightly easier route. And now we're in the lower town. Unlike the fortress at the top of the hill, this was built as a residential area. It was also surrounded by a wall with several gates, although those have mostly now disappeared. This is the Stone Bow Arch. Again, this is medieval, but it was built on the site of the south gate into the lower town. But here, behind the council offices on Orchard Street, is part of the lower west gate and a little bit of the city wall. While you're in this part of town, don't forget to have a look at the Lincoln Museum, which has lots of Roman history and artefacts. The museum itself is built over the remains of a Roman building, and you can see some of the original floor. And finally, we come to Brayford Pool and the Fosdyke Canal. The Fosdyke is a canal built by the Romans to link Lincoln with the River Trent, 18 kilometres away. It established Lincoln as an inland port and allowed the city to trade with towns across the country. Today, the Fosdyke is the oldest artificial waterway still in use in Britain, and you can walk or cycle beside it. A great way to round off your exploration of Roman Lincoln.